Have you ever felt the slow burn of someone chipping away at you, not with open attacks, but with small, precise cuts? A question asked in just the right tone to make you doubt yourself. A silence that feels like punishment. A smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. Most toxic people don't try to destroy you all at once. They slip into your mind quietly, making you second-guess your worth, over-explain your choices, defend yourself against things you didn't even do. And the more you react, the more you feed them. The Stoics understood this long before we gave it a name. They knew that true strength isn't found in striking back. It's found in becoming untouchable. Not by building walls so high no one can reach you, but by carrying yourself in a way that leaves no opening for chaos to land. Today, we'll explore 7 psychological boundaries shaped by Stoic thinking. Not theories, but living practices that can shift the way you move through the world and the way the world moves around you. So if part of you is tired of the noise, the games, the quiet erosion of your peace, stay with me. This might be the perspective you've been waiting for. 1. Emotional non-reactivity. Have you ever stood across from someone who was clearly trying to get under your skin, picking at your words, twisting your meaning, pushing buttons you didn't even know you had, until you felt that urge to react? The heat rising in your chest, the quickening of your breath, the instinct to prove, to explain, to fight back. Most people take the bait. That's exactly what the toxic thrive on, your reaction. The Stoics understood something that feels almost impossible in the moment. Control is not about overpowering another person, it's about mastering yourself. Epictetus once said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." In other words, no matter what's thrown at you, you have a choice. You can hand over your emotional state like loose change, or you can keep it as your own unshakable currency. And here's the part they hate. The moment you stop reacting, you take away their control. They're left without fuel, and without fuel, the fire dies. I knew a man who worked under a boss famous for his cutting sarcasm. Every meeting, this boss would slip in a jab, never enough to warrant formal complaint, but sharp enough to sting. Most people defended themselves, argued or sulked. This man didn't. When the boss said, "I guess you think you're smarter than everyone else," he looked at him calmly and replied, "Believe whatever you need to." No defensiveness. No raised voice, no extra words. The jab fell flat. The room went silent, and over time the boss stopped aiming at him entirely. It wasn't that the words no longer came, it was that they no longer landed. That's what emotional non-reactivity looks like. It's not coldness, it's clarity. It's understanding that some arenas are designed for you to lose the moment you step in. When you try to reason with someone who's not seeking truth, you're not resolving conflict. You're walking into their battleground, where emotions are weapons and logic is irrelevant. In that space, your best move is not to fight harder, but to refuse the fight altogether. Building this boundary is like building a muscle. At first, it feels unnatural. You'll want to explain yourself, to correct the record. But the discipline is in the pause. 3 seconds of silence before you speak can shift the entire power dynamic. Feel your feet on the ground. Slow your heartbeat. Name the moment for what it is, emotional bait, and then choose consciously whether it's worth your energy. This is not about becoming numb. The Stoics didn't train themselves to feel less. They trained themselves to choose where their energy went. You still care. You still feel, but you place that care where it matters, not where it's exploited. The world will still provoke you. Words will still sting. But when you carry yourself with the calm of someone who knows their own mind, you stop living at the mercy of every passing storm. Toxic people want chaos, not connection. They want the high of knowing they can pull you out of yourself. When you deny them that, when you meet provocation with stillness, you don't just protect your peace. You send a message without speaking. You don't get to decide how I feel anymore. In the end, this isn't detachment born of fear. It's mastery born of awareness. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. People will try to provoke you, and you'll smile, not because you don't care, but because you no longer need to. You'll find that calm isn't just a mood, it's a shield. And the calmer you stand, the clearer the path ahead becomes, leading us to the next boundary where silence itself becomes your most strategic weapon. 2. The power of silence. Have you ever been in a conversation where every part of you wanted to speak, to correct the lie, to defend your name, yet you knew deep down that any word you gave would only feed the fire? In a world addicted to noise, silence can feel unnatural. But for the Stoics, silence was not emptiness. It was a blade, sharp and precise, cutting away the control others tried to have over their mind. And for toxic people, silence is not just uncomfortable, it is devastating. The truth is, their game depends on you reacting. They survive on your explanations, your anger, your need to be understood. When you refuse to engage, when you meet provocation with stillness, you take away the one thing they can't live without: your emotional engagement. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In silence, you claim that power. It isn't weakness, it isn't avoidance. It's a deliberate choice to step out of their emotional vortex and remain anchored in your own clarity. I once knew a woman who lived with a master manipulator. Every disagreement ended the same way, him turning the story, making her feel at fault, and her scrambling to explain herself. One day, during yet another argument, he said, "You're too sensitive. I never said that." She felt the familiar heat rise, the urge to defend herself. But this time, she didn't. She looked him in the eyes, said nothing, and walked away. No slammed doors, no tears, just the quiet weight of her absence. It was the first time she saw his face falter. In that moment, she realized she hadn't just protected her peace, she'd broken the spell. Silence does something words can't. It removes the mirror. Manipulators need to see their reflection in you. If they hurt you and you shout, they feel significant. If you cry, they feel powerful. If you argue, they feel superior. But when you remain still, face calm, voice quiet, eyes steady, they are forced to confront themselves. And for many, that is a place they cannot bear to stay. This is why silence must be held with strength. Without that inner anchor, it becomes avoidance. But with intention, it's liberation. It says, without words, I choose what enters my mind. I choose who has access to my inner space. You're not punishing them, you're protecting yourself. Detachment here isn't cold indifference, it's refusing to lose yourself in those who have already lost themselves. The discipline lies in resisting the pull to fill the void. Most people rush to patch silence with explanations, to smooth the tension. Don't. Let the pause stretch. Let them feel the absence of your energy, your posture, your breath, your stillness. These become the message. Walking away becomes a complete sentence. A 5-second pause before you speak can make you 10 times more powerful. And sometimes the most decisive act is not to respond at all. When you do this, they can't guilt-trip you, twist your words, or rise above you on the wave of your reaction. Instead, they face irrelevance. And for someone addicted to control, irrelevance is a kind of death. You haven't shouted. You haven't insulted. You've simply stopped showing up to the performance. And that, more than any argument, is how you win. Because silence, when chosen, is not emptiness, it is authority. And in the space it creates, you will find the doorway to the next boundary, where absence itself becomes a force they can no longer touch. 3. Strategic unavailability. Have you noticed how, in this age of constant connection, it feels like you're never truly alone? Your phone lights up, the inbox grows, the messages pile. Everyone seems to expect you to be instantly reachable, emotionally available, digitally responsive, mentally on call at all times. And while that might feel like being caring or dependable, the Stoics would warn you, the more open your gates, the easier it is for chaos to walk right in. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. But if you give that mind away too freely, you surrender your power without even realizing it." Toxic people know this. They don't just take your time, they study your rhythms, your responses, your weak hours. They call when they know you're busiest, drop emotional grenades just before your important day, blur the lines between concern and intrusion. To them, your availability is not kindness. It's permission. I knew a man who used to answer every angry text from his ex immediately. No matter the hour, no matter the day, he would drop what he was doing to reply. It wasn't love, it was compulsion. Then, one day, he changed the rules. He read the message, took a breath, and didn't respond. Not for minutes, not for hours, sometimes not at all. At first, the messages multiplied. Then came the guilt trips. You've changed. You don't care anymore. But eventually something shifted. The silence became normal. The urgency faded. And for the first time in years, his mind felt like his own home again. This is strategic unavailability. The Stoics practiced it in their own way, not through vanishing from life, but by refusing to be everywhere for everyone. They valued presence over performance, quality over quantity. They understood that your energy is sacred, your time limited, and your peace the foundation of your clarity. To guard these, they stepped back, not out of ego, but to remain anchored in their own inner world. Being unavailable doesn't mean you cut yourself off from people you love, or that you become cold and unreachable. It means you stop attending arguments you never agreed to. You stop explaining yourself to those who only twist the truth. You stop offering your emotional presence like it's a public utility. Your attention becomes something earned, not something demanded. It's the difference between a candle left in a hallway and a guarded flame in a sanctuary. Both give light, but one is protected from every passing wind. When you choose to be less accessible, expect resistance. People used to instant replies might call you distant, arrogant, even selfish. But that's projection. What they're really saying is, I can't control you anymore, and that scares me. Let them sit with that discomfort. It's theirs to manage, not yours to fix. Remember, what is rare becomes valuable. What is always available becomes expected, then resented, then exploited. By stepping back, you make your time, your presence, and your energy valuable again. You become respected by the right people, feared by manipulators, and protected from emotional chaos. You stop being a sponge for other people's drama and start being a mirror that reflects only what aligns with your peace. If this resonates, take a quiet moment after this video to consider: who has unrestricted access to your mind? And have they earned it? Share your answer below, just 1 or 2 words. And if you're ready to keep building these boundaries and live with more clarity, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because the moment you realize your mind is a gate and you are the gatekeeper, you stop letting the wrong ones in. And that opens the way to the next boundary, where saying nothing at all can speak louder than any defense. 4. Stop explaining yourself. Have you ever found yourself tangled in a conversation where no matter how clearly you spoke, the other person twisted your words until they became something unrecognizable? It's like pouring clean water into a muddy glass. No matter how much you give, the clarity is lost. That's the trap toxic people set, convincing you that you owe them an explanation, a justification, a receipt for every choice and boundary you make. And if you step into that snare, you'll spend your life negotiating your peace with people who never intended to respect it in the first place. On the surface, explaining yourself seems harmless, polite even, but in a toxic dynamic, every explanation is an opening. They ask, "Why didn't you answer me?" Or, "Why are you being so cold?" They'll frame it as curiosity, concern, or a plea for maturity. Why can't we talk this out like adults? But those words aren't a bridge to understanding. They're a key, and they're trying to unlock the door to your mind. Once you open it, they twist your sentences, gaslight you, minimize your feelings, plant doubt in your thoughts, and watch you unravel from the inside. That's not conversation. That's control in disguise. The Stoics saw through this game. Epictetus taught that our first responsibility is to our own reasoned judgment, not the shifting opinions of others. A Stoic mind doesn't need the world to approve. It needs only to be rooted in truth. When you make a choice anchored in your values and your peace, there's no need to turn it into a trial. You simply act. That quiet confidence is the mark of someone who refuses to barter their calm for another's approval. I think of a woman who once told me about her ex, a man who couldn't let go. After their breakup, he kept texting, insisting, "I just want closure." She felt the tug, the urge to be kind, to tie up loose ends, to end things on good terms. But deep down, she knew the truth. This wasn't about closure. It was about keeping a door open, about maintaining just enough emotional access to pull her back in. So she didn't debate. She didn't explain. She simply said, "I'm not available for this conversation. Take care." And then she said nothing more. No defense, no guilt, no further contact. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. That's the thing. No is a complete sentence. It's not the start of a negotiation. It's the end of a transaction. You don't owe anyone a list of reasons why you don't want to engage, why you don't feel safe, or why you changed your mind. You can simply say, "I'm not comfortable with this. This isn't something I want to participate in. No, thank you." And then stop. It's in that silence that your power consolidates, because silence is where manipulation dies. Breaking this habit takes practice. First, you have to decide ahead of time where your lines are, so when pressure comes, you're not scrambling to justify yourself. When you speak, speak briefly and calmly, without apology or room for debate. Expect pushback. Let their discomfort remain theirs. That's where many falter. They feel guilt creeping in and rush to ease it. Journal those moments. Notice where guilt has been weaponized against you. And most importantly, practice internal validation. Remind yourself, my peace does not require their approval. This is the bedrock of self-mastery, and most never build it because they're too addicted to being liked. The shift from approval to autonomy is profound. Once you stop explaining yourself, you stop living in anticipation of how you'll be perceived. You no longer craft perfect sentences to avoid being misunderstood. Instead, you start living from the inside out, guided by principles instead of popularity. Marcus Aurelius said, It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. The day you stop explaining is the day you stop making other people's opinion the measure of your worth. And yes, toxic people will react. They'll say you've changed. They'll claim you've grown cold. They'll accuse you of not caring. Let them. What they're really saying is, you're no longer emotionally dependent on my approval, and that makes me irrelevant. That irrelevance is theirs to face. It's not your burden to carry. So the next time you feel the reflex to explain, pause, breathe. Remember that your truth does not need an audience to be real. You are allowed to choose silence over argument, clarity over chaos, and dignity over approval. That is not selfishness, it's the discipline of someone who understands their worth. And once you master this, you're ready for the next step, a boundary that doesn't just protect you, but makes you unreadable to those who would try to control you. That's where true freedom begins. 5. Break the pattern. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to know exactly which words will make you flinch? Exactly which tone will make your voice rise? Exactly which silence will make you rush to fill it? They don't stumble upon these things by chance. They study you. They watch your reactions like a scientist observing an experiment. They log every trigger, every crack in your armor, and when the time comes, they press in the same place again and again. That is not chaos. That is control. And control only works if you keep dancing to the same rhythm. Toxic people rely on patterns. If they know a guilt trip will make you cave, they'll use it. If raising their voice gets a reaction, they'll raise it. If tears keep you from walking away, the waterworks will arrive right on cue. You think you're dealing with someone who's hurt, but more often you're dealing with someone who's memorized your buttons and learned how to play you like an instrument. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That strength begins when you stop offering predictable responses. The Stoics trained not just to feel less, but to react less. Because every reflexive outburst gives away data, your fears, your insecurities, your emotional blueprint. But when you stay still, when you move with calm detachment instead of emotional reflex, you become unreadable. And unreadable is unbreakable. To a manipulator, that's terrifying because their entire game depends on scripting your behavior. Break the script and you break their hold. Picture this. There's a person in your life who runs the same play every time. They blame you, you defend, they escalate, you panic, they apologize, you forgive. Then it repeats. But one day, you decide not to follow the script. They blame you, you pause, say nothing, no defense, no argument, no explanation. They escalate again, louder, trying to bait you back into the cycle, still nothing. Now the room is quiet except for their voice, echoing against their own accusations. Without your predictable part, the performance collapses. That silence is not passivity, it is psychological dominance. Becoming unreadable doesn't mean becoming cold, it means becoming less obvious. Start by auditing your patterns. Notice the phrases you always fall back on when guilted, the reflexes that surface when anger or sadness is pushed on you. Then, create space between stimulus and response. Count to 5 before speaking. Let the wave of emotion crest and pass before you decide what to do. Sometimes, respond with calm curiosity. What makes you say that? Instead of defense. Other times, drop the need to be understood entirely. Let them sit in their own misunderstanding, because that's where their illusion begins to crack. This is not about pretending you feel nothing. It's about choosing not to display everything. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." In this context, bravery is refusing to be predictable even when your instincts scream to react. Train detachment like a skill. Meditate, journal, rehearse calm under pressure. Learn to hold your face, your voice, your breathing steady even when the storm inside you rages. Calm is not a mood, it's a weapon, and something shifts when you master this. Toxic people start second-guessing themselves. They can't predict you, so they can't control you. Their manipulations lose precision, their emotional leverage slips. They unravel under their own tactics. You are no longer inside their game, you are watching it from above, and that perspective is power. The less they know what you'll do next, the less they can prepare their moves. The more still you are, the more the control returns to you. In a world that weaponizes emotion, your stillness is your shield. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them try to guess your next step. Let them waste their energy trying to provoke a rise from you that never comes. Because the day they can no longer read you is the day they realize they never truly had you. And that realization will haunt them far more than any words you could ever speak. From here, the next step is to go even deeper toward a boundary that doesn't just guard your emotions, but severs the energy supply manipulators depend on. That is where their power ends and yours begins. 6. Controlled exposure. Have you ever walked away from a conversation and felt strangely lighter until, a few days later, something you said is repeated back to you in a way you never intended? That sinking feeling that your story, your truth, your private self has been handed to someone who didn't value it. Your energy, your dreams, your wounds, they are sacred. But the moment you scatter them freely, without discernment, you give away something priceless, your power. Toxic people thrive on access. Not just physical access, but emotional access. They study your fears, memorize your soft spots, store away your regrets and your longings, and then they weaponize them. The more they know, the more they can manipulate. In this sense, oversharing is like handing them the blueprint to your inner defenses. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If you allow too many hands to stir those colors, you risk losing the clarity of your own design. Openness is often confused with authenticity, but authenticity is not full transparency. It is truth spoken with discernment. The Stoics practiced measured presence. They could be warm, sincere, even vulnerable, but never indiscriminate. They knew that sincerity without discretion is an invitation for the wrong kind of intimacy. You can be kind and private. You can be genuine and guarded. Just because something is true doesn't mean it needs to be shared. I once heard of a woman who had a co-worker with a talent for friendly curiosity. At first, his questions seemed harmless. "How's your family? What's keeping you busy after hours?" She answered openly. But within weeks, her personal details became casual gossip. Her struggles were joked about in the break room. Even her side project, a source of pride, was framed as a distraction to her boss. The sting wasn't just in the betrayal, it was in realizing she had given away her story without testing the safety of its recipient. The lesson was sharp and lasting. Not everyone is ready for the truth of you, and some never will be. Think of yourself in layers. The outer layer is public, casual encounters, polite friendliness. The middle layer is tested trust, offered slowly, earned over time through consistency, respect, and emotional maturity. The inner layer is sacred, reserved for those who have proven their loyalty and care beyond any doubt. The Stoic boundary of controlled exposure is knowing which layer to reveal and when and to whom. Ask yourself, do I feel drained after speaking to certain people? Do I reveal things just to feel accepted? Do others know more about me than I know about them? If the answer is yes, you may be bleeding emotional energy without realizing it. This is not about shutting yourself off. It's about shifting from open access to intentional release. Delay disclosure until someone's character has been tested. Mirror what they offer before you share your own truth. Use ambiguity without deception. "I'm working on some personal goals" is often all you need to say. Watch how they handle others' secrets. It's a mirror of how they'll handle yours. Vulnerability is powerful, but only when it's placed in the right hands. In unsafe spaces, it's ammunition. In safe ones, it's connection. The Stoics understood this as a form of discipline, not manipulation, but mastery. By limiting who sees your full self, you remain whole. You deny manipulators the ability to predict or control you. You become mysterious to those who would drain you and magnetic to those who value restraint. In a culture of oversharing, your silence becomes sacred. In a world of instant intimacy, your discernment becomes revolutionary. You don't have to trade wounds for connection. You don't have to match someone's confession with one of your own. You don't have to hand your soul to every outstretched palm. You can choose, carefully and without apology, who earns the right to know you. And when you do, something shifts. You stop scattering your strength across the wrong landscapes. You stop feeding those who would quietly take from you. You stop giving the map of your mind to those who only seek to redraw it. You realize deeply and without bitterness, I am not for everyone. And in that realization, you reclaim the power to decide how and to whom you will be known. From here, the next boundary builds on this foundation, transforming the way you use distance itself, not as avoidance, but as a deliberate signal that reshapes the entire dynamic. That is where we go next. 7. Your presence is your boundary. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to get away with treating you poorly again and again? It's not always because they're stronger, smarter, or even more determined. Often it's because you've unknowingly taught them that they can. There's a truth the Stoics lived by. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you tolerate. People may hear what you say, but they believe what you consistently do. If you forgive betrayal without consequence, betrayal will return. If you meet manipulation with softness, the games will sharpen. If you stay after being disrespected, you've quietly confirmed that your respect is optional. Your presence is a classroom, and every day you're teaching others how to treat you. Whether you know it or not, your behavior is writing a rule book, and toxic people are skilled readers. They don't ask, how do they want to be treated? They ask, what will they allow? If you accept subtle insults, backhanded compliments, cold shoulders, or hot and cold affection, they'll memorize your threshold. They don't need to cross the line. They just learn to dance right up to it. The Stoics understood that boundaries aren't built with declarations. They're enforced in silence. The ancient philosophers didn't speak endlessly about their worth. They lived it. Their posture said, my time is valuable. My energy is sacred. My peace is non-negotiable. And without raising their voices, the room adjusted. The tone shifted. The energy recalibrated around them. That's not arrogance. It's quiet authority, the kind manipulators can't work around. People mirror what you project. Human behavior is deeply responsive. If you always make yourself overly available, others will stop valuing your time. If you allow emotional chaos into your space, drama will multiply. If you break your own rules, no one else will follow them. But if you carry calm, you invite calm. If you show consistency, you attract respect. If you radiate discipline, people will either raise their standards or remove themselves from your life, and both outcomes serve you. I think of a woman I once knew, someone with a deeply empathetic nature. Her sister was a master of emotional manipulation, crying when caught, exploding when questioned, withdrawing into silence when she didn't get her way. For years, the woman apologized, even when she wasn't wrong, just to restore peace. Until one day, she didn't. When accused of not caring about family anymore, she simply said, "I care enough to stop enabling dysfunction," and left it at that. No over-explaining, no emotional dance, just stillness. And that silence said more than years of arguments ever could. You can't reach me through guilt anymore. Sometimes the greatest lesson you'll ever teach is in the moment you walk away without anger, when someone loses access to you, not in rage, not in revenge, but in calm self-assurance. They're forced to face something they never expected. You meant it. Your boundary was real. Their behavior had consequences, and your absence became a consequence they couldn't argue with. To master this, begin by auditing your energy leaks. Where are you being drained but staying silent? Speak with action, not just words. Don't say, "Don't talk to me like that." Simply disengage. Let people feel your distance without explaining it. Be unapologetically unavailable for chaos. You owe no one access to your mental space. Replace those who cost you peace with habits and relationships that build it. This is where the deepest Stoic boundary lives, not in seeking to be liked, but in choosing to be clear. You no longer chase connection at the expense of your clarity. You'd rather be misunderstood in peace than loved in dysfunction. That shift dismantles toxic dynamics faster than confrontation ever could, because it sends one unshakable message. I respect myself too much to let you teach me how little you do. They might try to pull you back with confusion, wear you down with guilt, or punish you with silence. But when you've outgrown the game, you see it for what it is, a performance you no longer attend. You don't win by shouting. You win by building a mind they can't manipulate, a presence they can't penetrate. You're not just walking away from the toxic, you're walking back home to your peace, your power, and your principles. Boundaries aren't walls to keep the world out. They are bridges to the highest version of yourself. And when you master them, you stop living in response to chaos and start leading your life with clarity, courage, and calm. So let them wonder why you've changed. Let them feel the weight of your absence. Let your silence be the loudest boundary of all, because in this new chapter, you no longer prove your worth, you live it. And that is a language only the wise will understand. Let them wonder why you have changed. Let them feel the absence of the access they once had. Let your silence carry the weight of 1,000 spoken truths. You no longer need to prove your worth. You live it quietly and consistently in every choice you make and in every storm you refuse to enter. If these 7 boundaries stirred something within you, take time to revisit them. Reflect on which ones you have mastered and which ones are calling for your attention. Share this message with someone still entangled in emotional games so they can find their own path to freedom. If you are ready to live with steady clarity and quiet strength, subscribe so these reminders can walk with you each day. Comment below with 2 words: boundaries up. Your journey does not end here. The next step will take this strength you are building and forge it into something unshakable. Keep walking.